Everyone thinks the tower is the prison. I think they're looking at the wrong prison. When people remember Rapunzel, they usually remember the long golden hair, the wicked witch, or the prince climbing the tower, but beneath the fairy tale lies something far older, a symbolic map of the human psyche. Because what if the tower isn't simply a prison? What if it's actually consciousness itself? And if that's true, then the forest isn't merely a forest, the witch isn't just a villain, and the prince isn't just searching for Rapunzel. They are all symbols of something happening within us. Fairy tales have survived for centuries because they speak on two levels at once. On the surface, they entertain the children, but beneath the surface, they preserve patterns of human experience that each generation rediscovers for itself. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge Marie-Louise von Franz, whose work on fairy tales and Jungian psychology deeply influenced the way I approach this story. Von Franz was one of the first psychoanalysts to understand that the stories we tell our children are subtly filled with wisdom and knowledge that the children absorb unconsciously as they develop. She understood these stories as symbolic expressions of the human psyche, and her insights remain some of the most profound contributions to psychology, and her work is also a reminder that the exploration of the mind has been shaped by many voices, including the pioneering contributions of women in psychology. Now let's begin. When looking at Rapunzel, I wanted to move beyond the surface of the story and ask a deeper question. Why has this tale survived for centuries? If an ancient storyteller wanted to preserve a piece of wisdom that could endure across generations, what would they place on the surface for children to experience, and what deeper truth would they hide beneath the story, waiting to reveal itself with time? The tower is often interpreted as a prison, but perhaps it represents something more complex. The tower is separation, and separation has two meanings. It can become isolation, a place where one becomes disconnected from life, but it can also become perspective, a place where one steps away from chaos and gains the ability to observe, reflect, and understand. And yes, you might notice that towers carry a fascinating symbolic weight across stories. Even Sauron's tower in The Lord of the Rings uses this same ancient image of seeing from above. So through the distance from the tower, one can also forget the world below. The forest represents the unconscious, instinct, confusion, and the tower represents consciousness, distance, reflection, and awareness. But the twist is that both contain a danger. Too much forest and one can become lost in unconscious impulses. Too much tower and one becomes detached, isolated, and disconnected from reality. The goal is to strike a balance. The goal is integration. The prince is often viewed simply as the romantic hero who finds or rescues Rapunzel, but psychologically, I believe he represents something deeper. He is the person searching for something he cannot yet understand. He moves through the forest, but he does not understand the landscape. He knows something is missing, but he does not yet know what he is searching for. And perhaps this is the condition of many people. They search for fulfillment through relationships, pleasure, achievement, external validation, but without understanding the deeper image of what they are actually pursuing. They are searching outward for something that first needs to be recognized inwardly. To understand Rapunzel symbolically, we can turn to Jungian psychology. In Jung's framework, the Anima represents the unconscious feminine aspect within a man. The danger is that when this inner image remains unconscious, it is projected onto the world around us. The man does not encounter another person as they truly are. Instead, he encounters his own fantasy of that person. So he does not love reality. Instead, he falls in love with an image created within his own psyche, his own mind, an unconscious projection placed upon another human being. This is why unconscious projection can become destructive. A person may begin endlessly chasing an idealized image rather than forming a genuine relationship with another human being. The encounter with Rapunzel represents the possibility of withdrawing this projection, recognizing that the feminine principle is not only something to seek outside oneself, but something that must also be found within man himself. And across mythology, heroes often encounter figures who stand between them and transformation. The dragon guards the treasure, the monster guards the entrance, the guardian tests whether the hero is ready, and I believe that in Rapunzel, the witch belongs to the same symbolic pattern. She guards the tower, but the tower contains something the prince must encounter. The prince cannot reach Rapunzel without confronting the force that keeps her imprisoned. At first glance, the witch appears to be simply the villain of the story, but again, symbolically, she represents something deeper, the shadow side of the feminine. The feminine principle itself is not negative. Rapunzel represents one expression of it: life, connection, beauty, and transformation. The witch represents its distorted form. She is the feminine that has become separated from love and turned into possession. She protects, but she also imprisons. She nurtures, but she refuses to let life grow beyond herself. In Jungian psychology, one of the darker expressions of the maternal archetype is the devouring mother, a psychological force that does not allow separation or independence. The child remains forever constrained. The relationship becomes one of ownership rather than love. And this is exactly what happens with Rapunzel. The witch does not simply raise Rapunzel, she claims her. And the tower becomes a place which represents this. It prevents growth and exposure to the outside world. It's the perfect image for what the devouring mother creates: a prison. So, to put it in a better way, the witch is not the opposite of Rapunzel. She is Rapunzel's shadow. She represents what the feminine becomes when it refuses transformation, when protection becomes imprisonment, when love becomes possession, and when life is prevented from moving forward. And when I was analyzing the witch, I don't know why, but I immediately thought of the Greek and Roman mythological equivalent, the harpy, and also the Medusa, but the harpy is an interesting comparison to the witch, because like many mythological feminine monsters, she represents a threatening and destructive aspect of the feminine. She is associated with punishment, connected to chaos and disorder, a figure that takes rather than gives, and the witch shares this negative quality. Both represent a feminine force that has become disconnected from its creative and life-giving aspect. However, unlike the harpy, the witch is not only destructive, she is also a distorted caretaker. Her tragedy is that she cannot allow what she possesses, in this case Rapunzel, to become free. And the prince's journey is therefore not simply a man trying to rescue a woman, it is the unconscious self attempting to reach a lost part of itself while confronting the unconscious force that keeps it separated. The witch represents the obstacle between desire and transformation. If the prince only wanted to possess Rapunzel, he would remain unconscious. But by overcoming the witch, he moves toward a deeper union, one based not on projection, but recognition. Finally, the ending of Rapunzel is not simply boy finds girl. That is only the surface. At a deeper level, the story is about the union of opposites. The tower and the forest must meet. Consciousness must meet the unconscious. The masculine principle must encounter and integrate what it has rejected. Rapunzel must leave the tower. The prince must stop wandering through the forest. Both must move toward wholeness. Both must be complete. Both must transcend their limitations. Both must. Stop saying me from saying must. Otherwise, they remain separated, trapped within their own incomplete worlds, unable to fully realize what they could become. Interestingly enough, the story does not end with the reunion, it ends with children. This detail is symbolically important, I believe. In myths and fairy tales, children can represent the birth of something new. So they're not only literal descendants, but the fruits of the transformation that took place. When opposing forces become united, something new emerges, a new consciousness, a new possibility, a new way of being. The purpose of integration is not just for the sole purpose of resolving a conflict, it is to create life. So Rapunzel actually contains a very important moral takeaway. It teaches us that what we seek outside ourselves often represents a neglected part of our own psyche. The journey is not to possess what we lack, but to recognize, integrate, and make a tiny step toward wholeness. The tower was never just a prison. The forest was never only a place of confusion. Both were necessary, because only when the tower and the forest meet can something new be born.